James 1 2 to 18. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials. These words open not with avoidance of hardship, but with a reframing of it. The audience addressed was not a distant or undefined people, but those scattered among the nations, those living in the tension of an age that was reaching its appointed conclusion. Their trials were not random. They were bound up with a covenantal transition, a shaking of what had long stood so that what could not be shaken might remain. The testing of faith produces endurance. This endurance is not mere personal resilience, but a steadfastness rooted in confidence that what God promised was unfolding before their eyes. The pressures they faced, persecution, displacement, uncertainty, were not signs of abandonment, but indicators that the old order was giving way. Endurance, then, was participation in that unfolding reality, a holding fast to what had been revealed in Christ. Let endurance have its perfect work, that you may be complete, lacking nothing. The language of completion echoes fulfillment. What had been anticipated through the law and the prophets was reaching its intended goal. Completeness here is not moral self-improvement, but wholeness found in the realization of what God had already accomplished. To lack nothing is to stand in the sufficiency of that finished work. If any lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generously and without reproach. Wisdom in this context is not abstract knowledge, but insight into what God was doing in that present time. It is the ability to discern the significance of unfolding events, to see beyond surface-level turmoil into divine purpose. God gives this freely, without hesitation, because the unveiling of his work was not meant to remain hidden. But let him ask in faith, not wavering. Faith here is not striving to believe harder, but resting in the reliability of God's promise. To waver is to be divided between two understandings of reality, one rooted in the fading system, the other in the revealed work of Christ. A divided mind is unstable because it attempts to hold together what God himself was separating. The lowly brother is to boast in his exaltation, and the rich in his humiliation. Earthly distinctions were being redefined. Status within the old structures, whether social, economic, or religious, was losing its meaning. The one considered low was being lifted into a position of honor, while the one who trusted in visible wealth was being brought low. Like a flower of the grass, human systems and achievements were passing away under the heat of that decisive moment. Blessed is the man who endures trial, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord promised. The crown of life is not a distant reward deferred to another age, but the realization of life as God intended, life in union with him, secured through Christ. Approval is not earned merit, but the revealing of what is genuine when tested. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. God is not the source of evil. The struggle described is not initiated by him, but arises from within human desire. Desire, when misdirected, gives birth to sin, and sin, when fully grown, brings forth death. This progression reflects the nature of the old condition, humanity operating apart from the fullness of what God had provided. Do not be deceived. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. In contrast to the instability of human systems and desires, God remains constant. His giving is not sporadic or conditional. It flows from his unchanging nature. Of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of firstfruits of his creation. This new birth is entirely his doing. It is not initiated by human effort, nor sustained by it. The word of truth, the message concerning Christ and his completed work, has brought forth a people who stand as the beginning of a renewed creation. Firstfruits signal that more is included, that what has begun is the manifestation of a greater reality. In these words, the movement from trial to completion, from instability to steadfastness, from desire to life, is not a path of human attainment, but the unveiling of what God has already established.